folks, Steve here in the home garage again with my little man Dub, and we have Ursula the Lexus in the garage. As you saw from my IFO video, Lexus wasn't acting 100% normal. In fact, the last two outings, we have been seeing the overflow filling up with coolant. At the time, I presumed it was a head gasket issue, and I only feel more sure of that now because after making the passes at IFO, Dub, can you leave that alone, please?
I'm trying to open it.
It's okay, just stop. After the passes at IFO, before we got kicked out by old Goldie, the engine was breaking up quite a bit, and on startup, it would like have a real obvious miss. So this is just more and more indication that we have a head gasket failure. It no longer only happens under boost. It started obviously putting coolant in the cylinder whenever the engine was shut off. I did confirm that. I came home the next day and pulled the plugs out of it over there. Saw that the number 5 plug looked a little bit crusty. Now what you're gonna see when you have coolant getting into the cylinder is gonna be like kind of like scaly looking mineral deposits is what it appears to be. But we started seeing those deposits. Let me grab the plug. And so here's the plug. Now we're running E85, so it's kind of hard to see much contamination on a spark plug, but you can just see around the rim here. You probably can't really see. There's this little buildup of crud, and you're not gonna find that on any of the other ones. This is what one of the normal ones looks like, and it's just a little more just clean and uniform. Anywho, pull the plugs out, look down in hole number 5 just with a flashlight, and I can see standing liquid in it. So zeroed out here, number 5, got coolant in it, and now we gotta pull the head off because this weekend there is a slow car index race that I really like to compete in, and this car is really nicely set up for it. I got a week, less than a week. Today's Tuesday, and the event's on Sunday, so I'm gonna hopefully be able to just chip away at this a little bit each night. And I got a new head gasket coming, a new Toyota head gasket. This is also kind of an exciting opportunity to upgrade because the head gasket that's on the car right now is a 2mm gasket, which is lowering our compression because basically we blew up the engine real early and I was scared of detonation, so I went with a super thick head gasket, but I feel like we're really suffering in the low end from that. And so I'm hoping we can make a little bit more power and have the engine just overall happier with a normal Toyota head gasket for a GTE engine. So that's where we're at right now. I'm about to start tearing this thing apart, and we'll see if I can get it done and ready in time. Today I got Ursula in the garage, and she is way taken apart. After IFO, I went ahead and pulled the head off. Actually, first I pulled the spark plugs out, and I think I already covered that. Anyway, so I got the cylinder head off of the car now. Here's my table of parts. And man, if I could do this all over again, I would have pulled this engine out and put this engine in the Lexus and then just rebuilt this engine, because honestly, pulling the head in the car on these is way harder than pulling the engine out. That's probably not true for most IS300s, but since mine has been reworked so many times and I have just a big bulkhead connector that allows me to easily disconnect the engine and pull it out without having to mess with the harness, it would have been a lot easier for me to do that. But hindsight's always 20/20, so moving forward, we are just checking things out, making sure there's no damage that might have occurred from all that coolant getting in the cylinder, and I'll kind of just run down a couple of quick things that I checked once I got in here. So first thing that you will notice when looking down in the holes is that that piston's super clean, which is funny because when I pulled the plugs, it was this one that I saw coolant in. So presumably both of these cylinders were filling with coolant. By the time we address the problem, you can still see a little bit of soot in that one, but this one's like shiny clean. So that shiny cleanness is an indication of water or coolant getting in the cylinder and just kind of steam cleaning it. All the other cylinders look pretty equally dirty, which is good. So went ahead and cleaned up the deck surface of the block and just looked for any abnormalities, and other than some discoloration in some spots, that looks like pitting right there, but you can't even feel that. So honestly, overall it's in pretty good shape. And that's pretty close to being as clean as I need it to be. Probably go over it one more time. So then we will turn to the head gasket. All right, here. I kind of like split the layers already to examine it. All right, so on the head gasket, we are looking at, this is the rear, and I found on my fire rings, see how it's kind of buckled right there on this one? You see that little like pinch or a little crack? And if you look at this side's actually worse. See it, damn it. So this side kind of started peeling. And that's really all the damage I could find on this head gasket. Now, whenever you peel this thing off, you have a transfer of the black coating from surface to surface. So that's not really a great indicator. But that is all I could find right there. Now, that failure, in theory, if anything, would have caused a leakage of compression from cylinder to cylinder. Not so much coolant in the cylinder. But, you know, who knows? We got coolant running through some of these little ports. There's coolant running through this port. There's coolant running through this port. And I think this port too. So I guess it could have just migrated in here and maybe just been leaking into both sides. I'm not sure. I never did a leak down test because once I saw coolant, I was like, good enough for me. Had I had a good working air compressor here, I would have preferred to do a leak down test just for the data, but here we are, garage life. So then we turn our attention to the cylinder head. I've already got this pretty good and cleaned up for the most part. Cylinders 5 and 6 are gonna be right here. And there's really nothing different looking about these versus all the rest. But we did just want to make sure we didn't have any like visible cracks or crazy scoring or pitting or anything like that. And everything does look to be in good order there. So since we can pretty safely conclude here that we don't have any hard part damage, I just wanted to do one more test, which was a deck height test. I just wanted to make sure because you know, we lean on this engine with these stock GTE rods quite a bit, and these rods do bend, especially once you start making a bit of power. So I wanted to get deck height on all the cylinders, so I don't have the like a deck height tool with the dial indicator. That would be the preferred method, but just kind of a more crude and simple way to do this is just throw the straight edge on the block, get the piston up to TDC as best you can tell, and just use a feeler gauge between the piston and the straight edge. And I got about 12 thousandths of deck height. And the reason I wanted to know that is, well, I wanted to know that just to make sure I didn't have any like severely bent rods. Also, another thing this allows you to do is just kind of look at the tops of the pistons relative to the straight edge and see if any of them might have twisted. Because a lot of times when a rod bends, the piston will twist a little. You'll see the valve reliefs on one cylinder are just kind of clocked differently. But everything does look good there. Our D&J aftermarket pistons are holding up nicely. They look beautiful. This head did have some damage prior to assembly, to the last assembly, and you can see that here. And it looks pretty unchanged. You can see some dirt's embedded down in it, but it is smooth to the touch. And I don't think there's really any issue there. We do see slightly lower compression numbers out of that cylinder. And that's probably from when I kind of rubbed this down or polished this down to smooth it. I probably lost a little bit of mass. But yeah, so that's where we're at now. Oh, one more thing. I see quite a bit of oil up here. It's kind of accumulating in the timing belt area, and it was on the inside of the timing belt cover also. And once I got the valve cover off, I'd found that the front seal, the cam seal, had just about fully pushed out of where it goes on the front of the head. And the reason I think that happened is because I have the PCV blocked off on this valve cover, simply because I just didn't think I needed that much ventilation. I've just been venting out of the one valve cover here to our little homemade catch can over here. So when I do go back together, I am going to go ahead and put a hose here and tee it in with the breather hose, because obviously, well, what I suspect is crankcase pressure on this side of the engine under this valve cover caused that seal to start pushing out and gave us an oil leak. So we will sort that out. There's a whole lot of other stuff I'd love to clean up. I would love to make this engine look half as good as that engine. I don't know if y'all seen this. Let me show y'all this engine. I haven't looked at this thing in a while. So this is the one I built here recently. That is for the Z. And I would love to just go and start cleaning all these parts up, do that, but I have a race to make tomorrow. Today is Saturday, boys. I still don't have my head gasket. I did get a new timing belt because the other one had a little chip in it. I still don't have my head gasket, and the race tomorrow is driver's meetings at 3 o'clock at XRP. So I got to make a big push, really cross my fingers that my gasket comes today, and then make a big push to get this whole thing back together in time to make it to that event. But now I'm just waiting for the gasket. Once it gets here, we'll start cleaning things up, get it back together, and see if we can make it to our slow cars index race. So we are going to be going back together with an OEM 2JZ GTE Toyota head gasket. That is what all the big hitters use. Everyone swears by it. This is the gasket to use. Previously, this one over here was a Tomeo, or whatever it's called. And it blew. So here's hoping we get better luck with this one. We're really not pushing very much power through this engine. So not really an excuse for the head gasket failing the way it did. But hopefully with this one, we can go a little further, and it's much thinner than that one. So we should be running a bit more compression on this go around. Hopefully get a little bit more bottom end performance out of it. All right, morning time's here. First start up. Well, shit. It's leaking out of this little crossover pipe right here, which is really annoying because it's this special little O-ring. Damn. I got the housing off and found that our O-ring had just split. It was really swelled up and mushy feeling, so I matched up an O-ring for that. Went ahead and put a new one on the bottom here. We're gonna throw this on the car. We gotta be at the track in a little over an hour, and we're gonna be cutting it real close. So I'm gonna slap this thing on there, fill it up full of water, move some cars around so we can get her on the trailer, and probably we're gonna be doing our driver's meeting and are gonna get one practice pass. Oh, I gotta put the hose on my extra breather on the valve cover too. So I'm about to get to all that. All right, y'all, everything is buttoned up on the Lexus, fixed the coolant leak, got the breather hoses all hooked up and connected, and we're ready to head to the track. You'll have to wait till next week to see what happens, but like and subscribe and tune in, and I'll show you how we did at the track next week.